Hello and welcome, Mehdi here, back with another video for you. Today we're going to talk about Adobe Illustrator 101. We're going to go over the basic of Illustrator and we're going to start creating some simple logos of already existing companies, but we're just going to choose the simple logos that we can recreate, and that hopefully give you some ideas of the tools and technique that you can use in Illustrator to create simple vector logos. Right, so I have Photoshop 20 Illustrator 2019 open in front of me, and I'm gonna just select the web large file to open a canvas. So I'm just gonna select that quickly, give it time, it will open up the canvas, and just gonna give you I want to try to keep this video super short, so just quickly over the layout. Let me close the old document quickly. You have your properties and your layers on the right hand side. If your window at any point look different than my one, you can reset your space or your workspace, or you can choose any of those. I'm using the essential one, not the essential classics. If using one of the older version of Illustrator, it will be essential classics. Right, in terms of a toolbar, that is on the left hand side. If your toolbar doesn't look like this, and using a CC version, Illustrator CC, there is the edit toolbar option. So if you click on that, you get all the tools that are available in Illustrator. But to get all of these tools in your toolbar, if you click on the three lines again, the option menu, usually Illustrator comes with the basics. That's CC 2019. We want to change that to have access to the advanced toolbar, and you click it, and you get all the tools available to you, and that's the one I recommend. Every tool that has a small triangle next to it, that means there is something underneath it. So the pen tool will have multiple options underneath it. The text tool is the same. So if there isn't a small triangle, that means you have something or more options available to you. Right, let's get started. There's two tools I want to discuss today. We have the shape tools, which is the rectangle, rounded, and the ellipse and the polygon tool. We're going to talk about a few of those, and we're going to talk about the two different selection tool and what the difference between those two are. We're going to talk about the pen tool as well, and not necessarily maybe adding the anchor points or converting it, but mainly just the pen tool itself. So I would say pen tool is the most powerful tool in Illustrator. Once you get the hang of the pen tool, you can pretty much create anything. Right, let's start with the shape tool first. Rectangle tool, if you click and drag it, you will be able to create any shape or any size rather of rectangle. If you hold shift, that will lock it in to be a perfect square. If you want a specific size of square or rectangle, all you have to do is just click once. You will get a pop-up window, and then you can say, okay, if I want a 500 by hold tab or press tab, 500 by 250 pixels, press OK, you get a perfect 500 by 250 rectangle right there. Right, same with the ellipse tool. If I don't hold shift, it will always be ellipse. If I hold shift in, it will be always a perfect circle. If at any point you want to create a shape, but you want to move it, so let's say I'm creating it here, but I actually want this circle inside that rectangle tool, hold space whilst you're holding everything else in. So I'm holding right now shift in, space in, and my left mouse button. All of those are held in. I'm going to move that, put in the middle of my rectangle tool, let go, it will confirm the place, done. In terms of the rotation, so if I want to go back to the selection tool will allow you to select different shapes. And if I want to rotate something, I can just go to the corner and I can rotate an object, a shape. If you want to rotate at a specific angle, so we want it to snap, so instead of guessing what would be perfectly straight, hold shift and it will snap every 45 degrees. So that is a quite handy tool. If you want to resize something and you don't want to mess up the proportion, let's say this was a perfect circle and you want to resize it, but you don't want to squash or stretch you hold shift again. If you hold shift, it will always keep the proportion. Same here, hold shift, you can keep the proportion of it. So that's pretty much the basic of the shape tool. One more thing actually, since we're here, let me just resize that one quickly. Let's say you have this shape and you want to be able to access different points and then adjust it. That is the direct selection tool. Direct selection tool will allow you to adjust the anchors of each object. So at any point, if you want to create different shapes and you want to have the already existing anchor point in those shapes as your starting point, you can use the direct selection tool and then change those anchor. So let's say if you want to change the points for a circle, and all you have to do, change that, and that will give you a specific shape that you're after. So that might remind you of Donald Duck nose, maybe. But that is what the shape tool does. Right, just gonna go Control Z, Control A to select everything, delete to have our empty canvas. Now let's discuss the pen tool. The pen tool will have, you will have two options. You can click once and then you can draw angular points or sharp corners, if you will. But if I click and hold it and drag it, by that I mean this, look, I can decide where my next point will be. Let's say roughly here. I can click, hold, drag, click, hold, drag, and I can create more softer corners. So if I go back to the selection tool, delete it, just to show you again. So first point, you always gonna click once. I'm not clicking or dragging. You always determine where your second point should be. Then you can click it either once if you have a sharp corner, or you can click and hold and drag if you want a rounded corner. So depending on what you're after, you click it either once or click, hold and drag. You never drag from the original point, because if you drag from the original point, you're just adjusting the current or the last anchor. Every single one of these is called an anchor. And again, each anchor will have two handles. So this will have, so that point will have one handle, or depending on if you have cut one of the handles, you either will have one handle or two, and then you can adjust them separately. Right. When we start creating logos, this will make a lot more sense. One of the best ones to create, so if I were to bring back one of the folders quickly, just bear with me. So I'm just going to click and drag an image that I want to edit. Let's have a quick look. Simple logo. Right. If I have a Facebook logo, I can just go File, Place, or you can just drag it from a folder. So I just dragged it. I want to try to recreate this. So I'm going to click and hold and go to the rounded rectangle tool. If I click and drag and hold Shift, obviously that's going to give me a perfect square. To adjust the roundness, the level of roundness, I can click up and down on the arrow keys on my keyboard, and that will adjust the roundness of my shape. So I'm going to hold Shift again, make sure it's perfectly square, let go, and that would give me a very similar shape to the outline of the background shape of Facebook logo. Now I'm going to use the sample tool with that being selected. So again, I'm going to go to the selection tool, select it, go to the eyedrop tool, and then sample the color. That's the first shape. The second shape is the highlight on the top. Again, we have a rounded shape, so I'm going to replicate that. I'm going to go there and I'm going to click, hold, and drag it. I don't know if you can see it. It's very tough to see it because it's just the outline. But if I now have that selected and sample it, you should be able to see the difference quickly. All right, sampled it. Now we want to change this anchor point. So if I were to go to the second tool and then click once on the anchor. It will turn blue. Notice the other ones are white. Blue means it's selected. I'm going to use the arrow key on my keyboard, and I want to make sure that it looks a bit more sharp. If you want it really, really sharp like that, all you have to do, let's go back. Apologies for that, there's a lot of Control Z. I keep going back. But if I were to click and hold the pen tool, select the anchor point, all I have to do is just click once, it will convert that into a sharp point. And then I can just move the anchor manually. I can hold shift. If I hold shift, it will just snap and make it straight. So I'm going to go back here, go back to the convert tool, click it once, it will convert it into a sharp point. Use the arrow key to be more precise, or you can hold shift, oops, drag it and then hold shift. Let's just convert it first, and then go to the move tool and then hold shift. That will give you a perfectly sharp corner that would look exactly like that. So far we created both of them. I might want to squash that in a bit to look a bit similar, right? That's perfect. Now let's do the F itself. I'm going to use the pen tool. I'm going to adjust my stroke to be black just for reference, and I'm going to give it a couple of points. For the fill, I want to turn that to none, so it doesn't annoy me while I go around the F. Otherwise, it would be difficult to see and to go over the outline. So I'm going to hold the Alt zoom in so I can see the entire shape in my screen. Start with clicking once, hold shift for straight lines. I'm going to keep shift hold in as long as it's straight. If it's horizontal or vertical, perfectly, I'm just going to hold shift. For this one, obviously, I'm not going to hold shift. If I hold shift, that's the preview. It's going to be straight. I'm not going to hold shift, match it, hold shift now. In terms of the corners, again, just one before the corner starts, and then determine where the corner ends. If I click once, obviously it's going to be sharp. I'm going to click, hold, drag, and if you hold shift in, it will just follow a straight line. Now this is the point that you need to go back. So every time you do a corner like that, I would recommend you go back and you cut an anchor point. The cutting an anchor point, it will cut one of the handles. So if you go over an anchor that you just created and it has two handles, you see the icon next to your cursor changing. And if you click that, notice what happens to the anchor or one of the handles. It will disappear. Now I can go straight. Notice before, look, if I want to do that, it's not recommended to keep the handle. So if I were to cut it, look at the preview. Now it's going to be straight. I know it's going to be a straight line, so I'm going to cut the anchor. It's good practice to do that anyway. Hold shift. Again, hold shift. Before the point starts, hold shift. Zoom out. Probably a bit more. This is the point. Click, hold, and drag. Zoom in, cut the anchor point. Rest of it should be easy. Shift, hold shift. Couple more points. And then we've got the last one. With the last one, notice what happens. If I were to zoom in, you still won't see it properly, but next to the cursor, you have a circle, small circle. That means the shape, you're closing a shape. So the shape will be finally closed because you're meeting it back with the very original point that you created. Now you can actually fill the shape in. So if I were to go back to the selection tool, and I'm going to drag on the path and bring it over. Obviously the fill was set to nothing. I'm going to hold shift to keep it proportionally correct. Let's just resize it a bit. Facebook logo, obviously we don't have the outline, so I'm going to set the outline to nothing. but the fill we're going to set to white. That will give you one perfect Facebook logo. So if you obviously zoom in, this was the bitmap version of it. Obviously we have the vector graphic now, which is perfectly sharp. And the reason we started by creating logos like this, simple logos, because this is just for the purpose of practice. If you can do a simple logo, then you can start creating your own logos. You can start sketching your logos. You can bring your reference points. So I recommend you practice and then find a lot of logos that you can that you like, maybe, and you enjoy recreating, maybe. Right, for instance, the YouTube logo is relatively easy. So as a basis, you can start with around the rectangle tool and try to match it as best as you can, and then again using the arrow keys. If you can see, you can get it to match fairly closely. If you want to go back and adjust the each point, so I can zoom in and adjust each point very slightly. Again here as well, I can slightly adjust it. That was my cat just going over the light. So if I were to pull this down quickly, and that tool is just a rectangle tool. So I'm going to hold shift, create a perfect square. I'm going to fill it with white. And if you go back to the second direct selection tool and you click on the one of the anchor points, select it, click on the anchor points, you can delete it. Now you can click the second tool, second anchor, sorry, use your arrow key, and then just match that. Now you can go to the selection tool, that would be the shape, bring it down. That's the YouTube. Obviously that would be one of the simpler logos to recreate. You want to start to challenge yourself to create something a bit more complex. Something with the Twitter logo, that's obviously just a pen tool. Just to go over it again, you go to the pen tool, and this is a good practice because all of this, I'm going to set the fill. Again, get to the habit to set the fill to nothing and the point to 2 or 3. 3 might be a bit too much, I think. No, that's not too bad. Make sure you zoom in. Click, hold, and drag. Cut the anchor point. So this is if it's a sharp point. And cut the anchor. And click, hold, drag. Cut the anchor. Again here. You need to determine how many points you want and where the next point is going to end. Less is more, always. In vector graphic, the less point you have is better. You don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. That's it's no reason to have that many points. You want to see, okay, can I get away with creating just 1 point? Same here. Oh, you noticed I didn't get a soft or as pointy edge as I want to because I didn't cut the anchor. So if I were to cut the anchor, let's go back. Cut it. And I angle it, I will get a much better point. You can cut it, angle it. Here as well, can I get away with 1? Yeah, probably can. Try to match it, cut the anchor. Can I get away with 1? Probably. Yeah, but I didn't close the shape. That was a mistake. I'm going to go back, do that. I messed up 1 point, which is the last point. I'm going to select it. I'm going to go back to that point. So I'm going to drag it up a bit. And that's the Twitter logo done. So if I were to select the shape again, take it to the side, select it, eyedrop tool, quickly sample it. Oh, sample it again. You got your perfect logo right there. So try to create as many as you can. That would be a good practice. And once you're at the stage that you're super comfortable with creating logos, the next step is to sketch your logos, import it. Again, file, place, you import your sketches. But you can take it even further. You can do character design. So I love Simba, so if you sketch a character, you can just bring it in, and then you can create your own vector graphic. So, and that was it. That's the basic of vector graphic and basic of Adobe Illustrator. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you like, share the video, and if you haven't subscribed, you really should. So make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and practice your Illustrator skills, especially the pen tool. I'll see you in the next video.